Okay. Okay, so there you go. So again, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Jomar Adams Ganding, and welcome to our first official lecture class for quality assurance, instrumentation, and laboratory entrepreneurship. So last meeting we did talk about a quick overview of what Quale is and what are the three major parts of this course that we will be talking about, namely your quality assurance, your instrumentation, and your laboratory entrepreneurship. Okay, your laboratory entrepreneurship. So for the prelim period and the midterm period, we will be talking about quality assurance, okay, the total quality management, and at the same time, um, quality assurance in the different sections in the laboratory. And then by finals, we will now be discussing our instrumentation on up until our laboratory entrepreneurship. Okay, so for this afternoon, by the way, Don, and any one of you can call my attention if in case my line is choppy already. My audio is not clear. And if nawala ako sa Google Meet, please inform me immediately. Okay, so let's get started. We will not be waiting for all the others. By the way, I'll be the attendance is being recorded, ha. The attendance is being recorded in this meeting. So moving on, okay, moving on. So for this afternoon, we will be having an introduction to laboratory quality management. So for our learning objectives, our goal, okay, that but by the end of this discussion, every one of you will be able to explain the importance of quality management system. So last time, of course, we did discuss about we did talk about quality in general, but now we will be um discussing each of the important elements and essential parts and procedures of quality assurance. So, secondly, all of you should be able to identify and enumerate the quality system essential elements. So, we have 12 essential elements that will be our parameters and also our our um, point to point discussion later on when we go to the different essential elements for your quality assurance. Thirdly, we will be able to describe the history of the development of quality principles. So I will be dividing our class into two parts. I'll be giving you a quick break later after the first part of our discussion. And then for the latter part of our discussion, we'll be talking about the historical development of quality principles. We have few individuals to talk about in this part of our discussion. And of course, lastly, we will be talking about the relationship of quality model given by ISO and by the CLSI standards. So these are two governing body that is concerned with your um, quality management. So we will be talking about this two in a short while. So going now to our discussion formally. So the quality management system, okay, quality management system, similarly to most of the systems that we know, okay, like for example, you just came from human anatomy physiology with pathophysiology. So most of you already have studied a lot of the organ system, okay, different organ systems that are not just important in our body as a system, but if we're gonna look at each of the system, each organ is unique, and each organ does play a very important role in the maintenance and in the performance of the overall function of your body. Similarly to the clinical laboratory, there are a lot of elements that would play an important role so that quality will be maintained inside the laboratory. So here, okay, We have 12. We have organization, your personnel, your equipment, purchasing and inventory, up until facilities and safety. Again, for those of you who just came in, I have already uploaded, okay, I already uploaded a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, so might as well have a copy of that. Download a copy of your download a copy of your PowerPoint presentation so that you'll just be writing down shorter things, specifically only those things that are not included in this presentation. Okay? So now, of course, in the clinical laboratory, all of these elements, okay, all of these essential elements, they all have one goal. If your nervous system, okay, if your nervous system does perform a specific function, if your excretion, your digestive system, all of them would play a very important role in the body. These essential elements here, would also play a very important role in the what? In the maintenance of your quality. So as you can see right now, okay, as you can see right now, in each of the picture, that these are actually procedures in the laboratory. Okay, these are actually procedures in the laboratory, and each of these procedures are actually needing your quality to be maintained. So take for example, if we're talking about your donning and doffing of your personal protective equipment would also require you to have the utmost quality, not only of the procedure but also the PPE that you will be wearing. Okay, in cases of assay, or in reagent preparation, we do follow a certain quality, okay, a quality measure to make sure that all of your measurements will soon be accurate and reliable. Here, in this particular procedure, your medical technologists are performing the accessioning and patient identification. Okay? So, we also need quality in it. If you are performing tests and you are looking at into the result up until the interpretation of the result into your patient, one very important factor to always think about and consider will be your quality. And even, 'di ba? Even washing your hands would require you, okay? Even washing your hand would require you to follow some certain standards to maintain quality within the clinical laboratory. So before we move forward, I did talk about quality already, okay? We did talk about quality already. But I just want to ask a few students on the class right now, what is quality for them? So for you, why is quality important? So we're not just gonna talk about quality in the clinical laboratory, but you can go as far as quality with regards to your products, with regards to all the products that you are buying, and also looking at the market. So let me call on two students who will share their thoughts about quality. So let's go and ask Ano Nuevo. Ano Nuevo, Christine, For you, what is quality and why is quality important?
Sir, para po sa akin yung quality po is kapag nasa-satisfy po niya yung standards po of a certain item po or like certain material po. And mahalaga po siya is para yun nga po, meron kang standards, masasabi mo kung better ba yung item mo or hindi maganda, ganun po.
Okay. Thank you so much. So,
Thank you po.
I thank you, Christine. So, I want to pick it up from what Christine said, no? She was saying that there is a particular standard so that you would know if your product is actually accurate, because sometimes, 'di ba? Sometimes for me the most frightening scenario would be making yourself a standard and actually not being of the standard. You get that? So sometimes, 'di ba? Sometimes we have that tendency making ourselves as the standard. But in reality, we fail to actually realize and actually think first if we really are meeting the standard. So thank you for that, Christine. Um, let's call another one. So I want to hear from Mark. Is Mark here already? Parang di ko pa. Wala si Mark. Okay. Okay, so I'll call sige, let's go to Jack. Busa. Jack Nicholas.
Sir, para sa akin yung quality kung anim siya sa product. Kaya parang naano natin yung concept na quality kasi parang tayo as a person naghahanap tayo ng like sa kunwari sa electric fan. Kasi may mga brand kasi na electric fan na madali masira like yung ibang brand is nagiinit agad tapos may iba namang brand na heavy duty na kayang isang araw na babad yung naka-on yung electric fan. Yung parang like meron tayong gustong standard sa isang bagay na kailangan ma-meet nito. So ito yung para sa atin na kalidad ito na kailangan ma-meet para sa atin. Yun lang, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Jack. Okay. So most of you are both of them, okay, explained their side of quality being something that you are looking for before buying a product, something that you look for before choosing. Okay, it's like an ideals, 'di ba? Ideal characteristic of a person that you wanna meet, 'di ba? Mga ganyan. And of course, 'di ba? Of course, those things are very important. Okay, those things are very important. And similarly to what their analogy was, 'di ba? Their analogy was about buying products. So in the clinical laboratory, the same thing goes. Um, how can you say, 'di ba? How can you say that a particular product is actually of good quality if you don't have something or a standard to compare it to? Okay? And to emphasize even further the importance of quality, okay? Not only in the clinical laboratory but in general, okay? When we say we want to achieve 99% level of quality, okay? What does it mean? We are still accepting 1% error. Okay? 1% error. Yes, we all know that nobody is perfect and there are a lot of systems that are still far from perfection. But why is it that there is a need to actually identify these errors, and um why is there a need to actually make sure that we will be having the utmost and the best quality in the market. So let me give you um, a more tangible picture, okay, a more tangible scenario with your quality. So when we say that you only maintain 99% level of quality, you still accept 1% error. And what does that 1% error looks like? So in France, okay, in France, a 1% error rate would mean that every single day, okay, that every single day, there would be 14 minutes without water and electricity. So that would mean allowing 1% error. Okay? What else? Allowing a 1% error in your system would mean 50,000 parcels lost by postal service. Gusto mo 'yon? Yung Shopee mo hindi nakakarating sa'yo, yung Lazada mo hindi na makakarating sa'yo. So 50,000 parcels are lost by postal services. What else? 22 newborns falling from midwives' hands. 22 ha? 22 newborns each day would fall from the midwife's hand if we allow 1% error. What else? 600,000 lunch. Okay? 600,000 packed lunches will be contaminated with bacteria. And what else? Okay? 1% error, allowing 1% error every day in your life would mean 3 bad landings at Orly, Paris airport. And maybe some of you would think, that's fine. That's just 3. Well, this is how that 1% error looks like. Okay? The 1% error is somehow we can say by paper, 'di ba? If it is through paper, okay, that's negligible. okay, that's acceptable. But if we're gonna apply it in reality, if we're gonna apply it in our lives already, in the systems, in the things that we are doing day to day, 1% error is actually um 1% error would actually look like as drastic as this one. Okay? So in the clinical laboratory, okay, in the clinical laboratory, why am I emphasizing this? Because in the clinical laboratory, okay, these numbers here, okay, might soon be numbers of your patients, number of pediatric patients that will be lost because of that 1% error. Okay? So are you getting me now how important error is inside the laboratory? It is very important because it is very important because it's our way of actually making sure the safety of everybody, and of course making sure that we are giving the best health services that they all deserve. So moving forward now, okay, moving forward, quality is very much essential, okay? Quality is very much essential in all aspect of the healthcare laboratory results, okay? It's very much essential in the laboratory result. Why? Because with quality, we can make sure that the result that we are giving to our patients are accurate, meaning to say they are true, they really reflect what is the scenario or the condition of our patients. They are also reliable. When I say reliable, doctors can actually base their diagnosis and even their treatment in the results that we are releasing. And on top of that, of course, it should also be timely. Because time and time again, I will say, no matter what, okay, no matter how accurate and reliable your results are, if you would be releasing it too late, okay, too late for your patient to actually benefit on it, namatay na yung patient mo, your patient is already expired, then that is not yet quality at all. Okay? So take for example, okay, you were counting the platelets. You were counting the platelets of a dengue patient. And true enough, you were very accurate. You were very reliable in your counting. You were able to count the absolute value, okay? The actual value of platelet in that patient's body. But you were able to release it 7 days after. Okay? You were able to release it 7 days after. And when you release the result, it will no longer be of use because your patient is no longer around. So are you getting me? Quality is not just about making sure that the results, the reagents, the machine, the personnel, and not even the time. Okay, not even the time. Okay, we cannot just focus on one. Okay, without focusing on the others. Again, I will go back to the 12 essential elements of your quality management system. All of this, okay, is your organization is not more important than personnel. No. Personnel is not more important than the organization. It's not the case. Okay? But all of these things work together for the maintenance and for the achievement of a great quality laboratory result. So, here, okay, you are a while back you were seeing the effects of errors. But what does error looks like, or what does laboratory errors cause in us, okay? In us laboratorians and even in the clinical laboratory. Of course, if you are always erroneous in your procedures, you would have to redo or rerun a lot of tests. So time, okay, your time will really be consumed performing tests time and time again just to make sure if your results are correct. Okay? So you have to repeat it not just once, not just twice, but as plenty as you needed just to make sure that the result is correct. But if you actually have a very good quality control system within the laboratory, okay, it won't actually take you so much time releasing a particular results. What else? What else does laboratory errors cause? It would also cause effort, and it would also cause personal effort. O gusto mo 'yon? 'Di ba? Nag-e-effort ka but it's not hindi naman pala nagma-matter. So personal efforts, okay, personal effort would also come to waste when you actually do not have a good quality system or good quality procedures being followed in the laboratory. So always make sure, okay, ladies and gentlemen, to take note of this thing. But among these three, okay, among time, personal effort, there's still one, patient outcome. And as you can see, it is in the bottom part. And this is actually the greatest, okay? It is actually um, the greatest consequence of laboratory errors, our patient outcomes. What do we mean by patient outcomes? Patients would have a wrong diagnosis because of a poor quality poor quality because of a poor quality laboratory result. Patient outcomes, meaning to say the doctor would have a wrong diagnosis, it would have a wrong treatment, wrong management of the patient, and eventually, worst case scenario, the patient will not even get well, but their condition will worsen. So in the laboratory, okay, in the laboratory, always remember this, okay? Always remember that every single time that you are in the laboratory, you're not there to play, you're not there to simply play an experiment within the laboratory, but you actually are going to deal with lives, okay? There was one board top notcher before that I was talking to, and then she said she actually practiced medical technologist only a few months after topping the board exam. During that time, she was the top one of her batch, the entire Philippines. Top one siya. But then, it actually caught my attention when she said that she was so afraid practicing medical technology in the laboratory. That's why she opted to just teach. She opted to just open her own review center. So she was so afraid of actually dealing with lives, 'di ba? And for me, that's actually a good thing because you know the value of every single specimen that you are holding. It might look like you're just holding a test tube. It might look like you're just holding a container full of urine or a container full of stool that you don't even want to look at, that you don't even want to transport into the laboratory. But those test tubes, those containers would actually mean lives. Okay? They actually mean lives. That's why it's very important for us to really perform every single thing in the laboratory with utmost care, with utmost competence, and of course, making sure that every single thing that you will be doing is up par to the standard. Okay? So, hopefully, I was able to give you and show you the burden of quality within the laboratory, within the clinical laboratory. And now, perhaps all of you will be thrilled into asking, so, sir, how are we going to achieve now an excellent performance in the laboratory? How are we going to make sure that in everything we do, like what you were saying, there will be quality? How can we make sure that we are following and we are living the standards? How? That is through the 12 essential elements in the total quality management. Okay? So all of these things, I don't know if you can you see the blue lines connecting one from the other? Can I see a raise of hand if you can see that? Can you see the blue lines connecting one from the other? Okay. So as you can see, those blue lines are not actually arrows pointing into the next procedure. Those lines are not pertaining to the next step or the next procedure that needs to be done. Okay? But rather, as you can see, those are actually interconnections from one element to the other. So what I'm trying to say here this time is that all of these 12 essential elements, okay, are interrelated and are interconnected with one another. A success in your organization but a failing personnel, a poor safety protocols in the laboratory would mean no quality. Okay? It's not quality at all. Okay? And it will not be quality still. Why? Because there are certain areas, okay, that are still failing. Okay, there are still areas that are very much far from the standard. So what we need to do, okay, to maintain, to achieve the excellent performance in the laboratory is to make sure that each and every single elements here are of good quality, are being chosen properly, are being processed and managed properly. Okay? So moving on now. Okay, moving on now. So I hope um you understand the importance of this now. So the biggest question now is that how are we going to manage all of this all together? The answer is your quality management system. So your quality management system is a coordinated activities to direct and control an organization with regard to quality. So for a particular company or organization, having a quality management system will direct them. What do you mean by direct them? Okay? For me, no, I would not believe a person who would say that they want to achieve something in life if they're walking in the wrong direction. Similarly, you cannot achieve an organization or a company into reaching quality if they don't even have direction or directives or models that they follow in their um company. So take for example, yung mga TikTokeries nating ano dito, yung mga TikTokeries na students ng O1. Okay? Isn't it that before you perform a particular TikTok dance, you look for what? You look for a standard. You look for a choreography that you will be following first. Okay? And then after seeing a discover after seeing a video already that you will be following, that will now be your directions. That will now be your standard. Okay? But of course, okay, quality doesn't just end by being directed into the right direction, but rather being maintained in that right direction. Okay? So, always remember that when you do something, 'di ba? When you do something for the first time, of course, 'di ba? When you do something for the first time, you're very enthralled into doing it with excellence, with following the standards. But as time goes by, 'di ba? Our performance might actually change. And sometimes that change are actually a deteriorative change. Okay? So, nung una, 100, naging 90, naging 80, naging 70, hanggang yun, wala na. Hindi na umabot sa passing rate na 70%. Okay? So, we also need to control that. Okay? We also need to control. Sorry. So when I said that our operations, all aspects of the clinical laboratory are important, I do mean it. All of them are very important. So all aspect in the laboratory operation needs to be addressed, okay, needs to be addressed to assure quality, okay, to assure quality. So this constitute a quality management system. So pardon with the loud noise outside our village kasi nandito na yung mga nagko-collect. Okay? So inside the laboratory, okay, inside the laboratory, sabi ko nga, 'di ba? There are a lot of different aspects that are actually concerned um with the laboratory operation. And that's what make your laboratory system a very complex system. So, kung mapapansin ninyo, 'di ba? Kung mapapansin ninyo, bakit kaya walang isang system na after doing it, yun na yun. Okay? After doing it, it would do its job for the rest of the laboratory. It's not the case, okay? Because in the clinical laboratory itself is a very complex, okay? It's a very complex system to start with. So, in the clinical laboratory, for me, we can actually divide the laboratory system into three major parts. Okay, and I want you to write down these three major parts. These are number one, okay, your pre-analytical phase, your analytical phase, and your post-analytical phase. In other terms, we also call it the first one as your pre-examination or your pre pre-analytical phase. In the pre-analytical phase, there are a lot of procedures that we are performing, okay, that we need to make sure, okay, that we need to make sure that are of good quality because makikisulat ako, mga kapanalig, okay? In the clinical laboratory, majority of the errors are actually not happening within the lab. Majority of the errors are actually happening during analytical um, not during analytical procedure, not during processing of the specimen. Rather, majority of your errors are actually happening in the pre-examination phase or the pre-analytical phase. Why is it so? Because in the pre-analytical phase, in the pre-analytical phase, a lot of factors and a lot of procedures are playing into role. What are those? So let me show them to you one by one. So we have here, of course, your personal competency and test evaluation, patient or client preparation and sample collection, how you transport or your sample for sample transport, and please makikilagay sample handling. Sample transport and handling. And of course, sample receipt and accessioning. So let us go and talk about this first before continuing into our discussion. So in the clinical laboratory, please remember that our goal is not just to process the specimen, but also to collect, okay? But also to collect the specimen. So in the laboratory, okay, you need to perform each and every single thing with following the standard. So in patient preparation, so what do we mean by patient preparation? Patient preparation would entail all the procedures and preparation done by the patient before the test. So when I say that, we are talking about the fasting. So did your patient fasted before blood is being collected? And maybe some of you will be are very much familiar. There are some tests in the laboratory that would actually require you to fast for a couple of 6 hours, 8 hours, some 10 hours, depending on the test really. Okay? So all of those patient preparation are very important. You are already on your PMLSP2. You will actually be studying the different patient preparation that are needed before blood collection. I know most of you are very excited with your phlebotomy, but the first thing that is always being taught to students is not how to puncture a vein, what vein to look for, but rather how to prepare your patient first before patient collection. Okay? So I know everybody was very thrilled with excited with venipuncture. But guys, I want you to be familiar first and I want you to master first what and how to prepare, okay? What to prepare for and how to prepare your patients before blood collection. Fasting is just one, okay? Fasting is just one. There are also other factors that we will also be considering, like your diurnal variation. Sir, bakit kaya there are samples that can be collected in the morning and some will be collected only in the evening or in the afternoon? Okay? That is explained by diurnal variation. Sir, what about smoking? Why is it that smoking is not allowed? I'm not ingesting something. It's not gonna, I'm not ingesting something. So why would that even affect my, um, my fasting? Okay? So that's another story for another time. Why is it that alcohol is not allowed? Why is it that exercise even is not allowed before blood collection? Why is it that stress and even the medication that I am taking, I hope you're writing it down, even the drugs and the medication that I am using are all considered and are all noted for patient preparation. So all of those things kasi would affect your result. The pre-examination, even if you're just collecting your samples, okay? You're just collecting your samples, but you also need to have in mind the results that you will be getting already. So that's just one in the pre-examination, patient or client preparation. Another story for another time will be your sample collection. Okay? Sample collection. So for your sample collection, you also need to look for, okay, you also need to look for the proper vein that you will be extracting blood from. What is the proper test tube to use? Maybe most of you are wondering, sir, but why is it that there are a lot of test tubes, a lot of colors in the test tube? Are we trying to collect all the colors from the rainbow? Of course not. Why? Because each and every test tube in the laboratory does have a specific requirement. They all have a specific test, and they all have specific requirements for using them. I will not be using, how would you know that you should use purple and not the red? When to use your orange and not the green? When to use your gray and not the pink, not the royal blue, not the white? All of those things will be discussed to you in the coming days. So, you see, okay? You see, guys, nandito pa lang tayo sa part na to. Patient preparation and sample collection, and the list will just go on and on with regards to how quality is important in it. Okay? Ito nga, if we're gonna be more technical, oh, the in the illustration, the lady extracting the blood doesn't even have gloves. Okay? Wala siyang gloves. Wala. Ang dami niyang errors, 'di ba? So for the personal competency, let's move on. For personal competency and test evaluation, always remember this. Personal competency is not just within the pre-analytical, but also in all other areas of your laboratory workflow. So meaning to say, in the analytical and post-analytical, staff or your personal competency is also very important. Why? Because at the end of the day, okay, because at the end of the day, within your laboratory, sabihin na natin there will be machines, there will be robotics already being used. But at the end of the day, those machines, those robotics will still be managed by a person. Okay? Will still be managed by a person. So they will be responsible that they too also know how to evaluate the test. Is this particular specimen, can I use it for a particular test, 'di ba? Of course, of not all specimen can be used in a particular test. So you need to also take note of that. Okay? When it comes to personnel, ayan, when it comes to sample receipt naman. When it comes to sample receipt, not everything that is arriving in the laboratory, okay? Not everything that you are receiving in the laboratory, you will be accepting. Okay? Not all the things that you will receive in the laboratory, you will accept and immediately run for a particular test. Okay? You need to evaluate them. You need to check the acceptability. Okay? You need to check the acceptability of your specimen. Karapat dapat ba to? Ito ba yung tama? Is it the right specimen? Like for example, your doctor requested for serum glucose level, and then you collected urine instead of your blood. Of course, you cannot use that. That's a very different thing. Okay? The doctor cannot use that to diagnose a patient. So, samples are very important. Okay? Samples are very important. Knowing the right sample for the right test is very important. Okay? So, take for example na lang ha, in cases of typhoid fever, okay? In cases of typhoid fever is caused by your Salmonella typhi subspecies typhi. Okay? Your Salmonella typhi would cause your typhoid fever. And your typhoid fever, to be exact, okay, can actually be cultured in your stool. Okay? But question, during the first week of typhoid fever, is stool the perfect sample? Of course not. Okay? Why? Because wala pa sa stool yung bacteria. The stool is not yet on the bacteria but it's still in the blood of the patient. Okay? So, You see, the specimen, the timing are all very crucial. Okay, the timing are all very crucial. So it's very important for you to know all of these things in the future. So most of that will be discussed in your PMLSP2 this semester. Okay, so what else? Okay, what else do we have? Okay, of course, we also have to think of patient or your specimen transport and specimen handling. So what do I mean by that? Even if how perfect your blood was collected, even if how perfectly your patient have prepared for that particular test, if you transported the samples, okay, if you transported the samples erroneously, there will be errors in your results. Okay, there will be errors in your reports, in your results. So what will happen? Take for example, now you enjoyed inverting or shaking the tube, and then you vigorously shake the test tube. Eventually, all of the cellular elements there would actually lies. Okay, magkakaroon tayo ng hemolysis, and eventually you can no longer use the sample. Okay, you can no longer use the sample for your evaluation. Okay, for the process and for the test that you will be doing. So you need to make sure that not only you are collecting the samples properly, but you are also transporting and you are also handling it properly. Okay? So in a sense, 'di ba? The reason as also unto why during the pre-analytical procedure, a lot of the things might actually go wrong because to be honest, tignan nyo naman. Ang dami naman din talagang ginagawa during the pre-analytical stage. Okay? So it's very important, okay? It's very important to take note of this. These procedures, okay? So tips for everybody. So you need to identify which are the procedures that do belong to the pre-analytical or the analytical and the post-analytical. So moving on, let's go to the examination stage. In the examination stage, okay, or the analytical stage, how can we make sure that there is quality in the laboratory, in the results that you are doing, okay, in the results that you are doing. So one thing that is very important for you to remember, okay, one thing that is very important for you to remember is the conduct of quality control testing. So quality control testing, isn't it, we have two. We have the internal quality control and the external quality control. So internal and external quality control are both procedures to make sure that there are no errors within the examination or within the analytical stage of your procedure. So take for example, when you are running a particular when you are running a particular sample, you need to have a control. Your control is like your standard that would say if you did that procedure correct or incorrectly. Okay? So those are very important things to remember, okay? So, quality control testing. What else? With the post-examination, okay, with the post-examination, akala natin sometimes after collecting the blood, after processing the sample, after releasing a result, our story ends. In the post-examination, are you guys familiar with delta checking? Can I see a raise of hand if you have heard of the term delta checking before? Delta checking. Have you heard of delta checking? Sabihin ko ulit. Delta checking. Have you heard of delta checking already? So, can somebody explain to me what is delta checking? So let's go and look for somebody to call. Okay. Jonas. I don't know if Jonas can speak now. Hello, Jonas. Jonas. I
Hello.
I'll go. What is delta checking?
I have no idea po, sir.
O, call a friend. Sinong tatawagin mo?
Next.
Sino? Si Meg.
Next po.
Sino tinawag ni ni Jonas?
Yung sa kasunod na lang po sa akin, sir.
Kala ko Megs. Kala ko
Yung
si
next
Megs
po.
na tawag ko. Si Beyaw, si Lara. Beya, what is delta checking? Beyaw.
Sir,
Yes.
mm,
PMLSP1. What is delta checking?
detecting misinformation in the patient's test results
How?
by analyzing the patient every time or comparing his present what do you call this present information to the previous ones.
Okay. So, hindi ko alam kung paano nahugot ni Lara yung definition niya na yan. But it's correct, okay? Delta checking is actually a post-analytical procedure we do to make sure that the patient's result is actually accurate. How do we do that? We compare the patient results. Uh, we compare the patient results. And if we're gonna be more specific, what are we trying to compare? What we are trying to compare, ladies and gentlemen, are the present and the previous laboratory results of your patient. I hope you won't be forgetting it anymore, huh? Because we're getting into the clinicals already. So when we say delta checking, again, we are comparing the previous and the present result of the patient to make sure na talagang yun yung result ng patient. What do you mean by that, sir? Okay. Take for example, in a particular laboratory, okay, in a particular laboratory, at 7 a.m., okay, at 7 a.m., sabihin na natin, take for example, it was Beyaw. At 7 a.m., Beyaw blood group platelet count was actually counted. And the results was 90. Okay, 90 times 10 per liter. And that is actually very low. Meaning to say, mababa yung kanyang platelets. Okay? Because only 90, the normal is 150. 150 to 400. So, the next time, okay, the doctor is closely monitoring her platelet count and after 4 hours, take for example, at exactly 11 a.m., okay, blood was collected and then when they counted it, it's normal. Actually, it's very high, 450. Okay, 450 times 10 to the ninth power per liter already of platelet. Of course, as a medical technologist, you will not release that immediately. Okay, I want you guys to remember that. You will not get excited now. Okay, yay. Okay, the platelet is now high, very high. Okay, but you have to think of it. Is that even normal within 4 hours from 90 to 450? Of course not. Okay, that is not normal. So when you compare the previous and the present result, you would have an idea that most probably there is error in between the tests. Okay, there was error in between the tests. There might be some collection errors or measuring errors or even typographical errors, as simple as that, di ba? As simple as that. And then eventually when they look at the in the machine, they actually discovered that it was not 450, it was only 45. Nadagdagan ng zero. So all of those things are very important, guys. Okay? And all of those are actually part of your post-examination or your post-analytical procedure. Record keeping, okay? Really, after the releasing of result, you don't end there. Okay? You don't end after releasing the result because you also need to keep the records. You have your medtech laws and bioethics this semester. Am I correct? Okay? You have your medtech laws and bioethics this semester. In the coming days, I will be asking you how many days or how many years would you retain a particular how many years would you retain a particular results. So gaano nga ba katagal, 'di ba? Gaano nga ba katagal mo kailangan itago? Okay? Hindi yung nararamdaman mo, kundi yung resulta ng pasyente mo. Okay? How many years? Some would actually take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. 15 years, and some will actually be needed to be stored from day one up until infinity. Okay? Wala na yung patient mo, nandun pa yung resulta niya. Wala ka na sa lab, nandun pa rin yung resulta na itinago mo. Okay? Are you getting me with that? So before, with regards to record keeping, we actually have a lot of paperworks before, but now we have it already on your computers. We have your laboratory information system already, so that those are very important innovation and advancement in the clinical laboratory, not only allowing us to store a lot of data, but it is also allowing us to retrieve it easily, to compare it easily, and to have a more systematic and more comprehensive analysis of all the results and data that we had. Of course, last but not the least, when it comes to post-examination, is the reporting of the results. Okay, the interpretation of the results. Okay, so it needs to be within the time frame. Okay, it should be within the time frame. So it's the turnaround time should be followed all the time. Question, okay? When I say turnaround time, when will the turnaround time starts and when will the turnaround time ends? Let us go with, tignan natin. Let us go with Kaasi Nicole. When will the turnaround time starts and when will it end? O yung start na lang.
After collecting the specimen po?
After
I'm
collecting
not I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Any other answer? Meron tayong isang option. After the blood was collected, who else? Denise, Honor, for you, when should turnaround time starts?
Um, when the test is being ordered.
This is being ordered. Okay, we have two options. Um, when specimen was collected or when test was ordered. What about Amansek? Trisha?
Sir, ano, um, sir, pagka-receive po nung specimen,
Pagka-receive ng specimen. Okay? So we have two options. Okay, we have three options. One, upon the collection of the sample. Two, upon the request of the test. Three, upon the receipt. Okay? Upon receiving the specimen in the laboratory. I want all of you to answer 1, 2, or 3. What is your answer? Binigyan na kayo ng tatlong option ni Nicole, ni Denise, at ni Trisha. What are your answers? Everyone, on the chat box now. 1, 2, or 3? Faith Agapito sabi 2. Most of the people answering now are 2. 2. Lolita said 2. Amira said 2. Jack said 2. The correct answer is upon the request of the test. Okay? Upon the request of the test, turnaround time will begin. Okay? And it will end upon the receipt of the particular results by your patient or by your physician. Okay? So always remember that that the turnaround time is very important. Again, babalik ako dun sa umpisa. No matter how accurate it is, no matter how reliable it is, if it is not timely, it's useless. If it's not timely, it's too late. If it's not timely, patient can actually suffer worse than what is expected. Okay, so it's very important. So far, are we clear with the pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical? Can I see a raise of hand if we're clear? Okay, thank you so much. So yung mga hindi pa natatawag dyan, maghanda kayo kasi matatawag kayong lahat today. So let's go now to the path of workflow. So as you can see, this is also the same thing that we were discussing a while back. So the path of workflow from the patient, okay, from the test selection or the test request, it will now push through to the pre-analytical. When I say pre-analytical, pre-examination, one and the same. Okay? So in the pre-examination phase, you select the test. Okay, of course, you talk to the patient will prepare, the test will be requested, and then sample collection, okay, would take place. Sir, what sample should I collect? Is it blood? Is it hair, nails, sweat? Is it stool, urine, saliva, tears? Name it, every single fluid that is coming out of your body can be a sample in the clinical laboratory. Okay? The different and then you transport it. Okay? Upon transporting and handling it, sending it to the clinical laboratory, now the clinical laboratory will start to analyze and examine your sample. Okay? So this is now the laboratory analysis part, whereby your medical technologist will examine or analyze the sample that was given to the laboratory. Okay? So afterwards, after your machine, after your medical technologist was able to generate a result, they will be creating now your results, which is part now of your post-analytical phase. Okay? Most of the time, a lot of the errors on the post-analytical are actually typographical error. Mali yung type ng pangalan, mali yung decimal point, mali yung numbers. Instead of pressing 9, you press 0. Instead of pressing period or a decimal point, what you press was a comma. So all of these are very crucial, everybody. These are very crucial, and I have my own fair share of story when it comes to these results, because there was a time that my decimal place was also misplaced. Okay, instead of releasing a normal results, I was able to release a very abnormal result. Okay, a very abnormal result. The good thing about it is that it was seen early on. Okay, it was seen early on, even before it reached the patient. Kasi kung hindi, di ba, lagot tayo dyan. Okay, your 4 years of hard work as a medical technology student can actually be jeopardized because of that very tiny decimal point. Okay, that's why validation is very important. Okay, so in the pre-analytical, okay, for me, all of the parts here are very important. Not just the pre-analytical, but also the analytical and the post-analytical. Why? Because all of these things, okay, all of these things are all important. This comprises now your workflow. Okay? And why? Okay, why is it that in the clinical laboratory, we even consider, it is very important to consider the path of workflow, because in the entire process of managing the sample must be considered. When I say the entire process, in the beginning, the pre-analytical, okay, from sample collection until the end, reporting and saving the result, and all the processes in between. The analytical, okay? The analytical phase of the procedure is also of equal important as the specimen collection and selection, and also the reporting, interpretation, and saving of results. Okay? So are we clear so far? Are there any questions or clarifications that you want to make? Are there any questions? Now will be the time for you to ask them. Are there any questions? Pwede naman okay? Are there any questions? We're not gonna move on. Are there any questions? Okay, according to Faith, none daw sa kanya. What about the others? Can I see a raise of hand if you don't have any question? If we can proceed. Okay. So moving forward, okay, they don't have any question. If we can proceed. Okay. So moving forward, let's go now to the different factors, okay? To be specific, these things are actually just the following here, okay? The following here are actually processes that are under the pre-analytical, post-analytical, and the analytical phases of our laboratory workflow. So as you can see, okay, our laboratory results or our laboratory tests are influenced by laboratory environment. Okay, knowledgeable staff, competent staff. So everybody, I want everyone to be on the chat box now. Okay, I want everybody to be on the chat box now. So you would tell me if these factors are of pre-analytical, analytical, or post-analytical, or all of the above. Okay? So everybody remember this even the chat is actually recorded. So what about the laboratory environment? Is it analytical, pre-analytical, post-analytical, or all of the above? Anyone in the chat box now? Okay? So, okay, most of you are answering. Okay, laboratory environment, ladies and gentlemen, are part of all of the phases. Pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical. Laboratory environment is very important. What about number 2 and 3? I'll combine them together na ha. What about knowledgeable staff and competent staff? Okay, all of the above, very good. All of the above as well, taray. Okay. Thank you so much. What about okay, this time. What about reagents and equipment? Pre-analytical, analytical, or post-analytical? Okay, ayan, nagkakaiba na po sila ng mga sagot. May sumagot ng pre-analytical, analytical. Okay. Analytical, pre-analytical. Okay, tatawag tayo ha. Samantha, Sam, why did you answer analytical? Ariola.
I think because the reagents and equipment are for testing the specimen, so it belongs in the analytical phase.
Okay, so okay, thank you so much, Sam. So that's correct actually. The correct answer is analytical because why? Most of the equipments and reagents that we will be using should be under the analytical phase. Why? Because later on when I don't know if you can still remember when we talk about quality control last meeting during the orientation, your quality control, okay, make sure of 3 factors in the laboratory. Your machine, your reagents, and your staff, okay? And your staff. And where does quality control falls? Your quality control falls within the analytical or the examination phase. That's correct. Thank you so much, Sam. So what about QC? Okay, quality control. Nakita nyo na eh. What about quality control? Of course, that is analytical. Okay, correct. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Okay, moving on. Okay, what about communications? Okay, communication daw, okay. The answer for communication is all of the above. Why? Because you communicate the test in the pre-analytical, you communicate within the procedure, but you also communicate especially at the end or the post-analytical for the patient's result interpretation and reporting. Okay, please remember that communications is part of all the 3 phases. What about record keeping? O last, record keeping. Last one. What about record keeping? Okay. So, it's good to know that we're on the same page. Okay, that is post-analytical. Okay? So, moving on now. Okay, moving on now. Let's talk about the 12. Okay, let's talk about now the 12. Let's talk about the 12 essential elements of your quality management. Okay? So the 12 quality system essentials are as follows. Okay, so these are set of coordinated activities that function as a building block for quality management. Okay, so it's very important for you guys to remember that all of these quality essentials, okay, these elements here are all participating in your path in the workflow, okay? In the path of workflow in the laboratory, all of these things are actually they actually belong there, okay? So from organization up until facilities and safety, all of them are interrelated, and all of them are needed. Okay? So in the organization, okay, let's go to the first one. Okay? So don't worry guys, after the 12, I'll give you a quick break before we push through with the next part of our discussion. So for the organization is more about the heads, okay, the administrators of your particular company or organization. In our case, our clinical laboratory. So they are the one that would actually have the responsibility. They also have the authority. That's why they are the one that would actually craft your policy manual. Okay, they would actually be creating all of our policy manual so that all of us in the laboratory will also be guided. Okay, will also be guided. In addition to that, they also are the one that would provide resources. Sa kanila galing yung kumikitang puhunan. Okay, so sabi nga ni Karen Davila sa may puhunan, okay, the organization's resources would come from your top administrators. And of course, um, the use of those provisions would also be under a policy manual, and also with regards to your communication. What should be the order of command? What is the chain of command? Okay, the chain of order. All are included in your policy manual. So what I'm trying to get across here is that when it comes to organization, okay, when it comes to our organization, our main goal here is to actually make sure, okay, ang organization, their number one goal is to actually lay down the structure of your clinical laboratory. Okay, they are the one that will be setting the structure of your clinical laboratory. Okay, so please take note of that. Okay, please take note of that. In addition to that, aside from organization, of course, we also have your personnel. Okay, so why is personnel very important? Okay, yes, I did say that among the other of all the of all our elements, okay, there is nothing more important than the others. But if we're gonna look into it deeper, okay, one of the most crucial part of this is what? One of the most crucial part is your personnel, okay? It is one of the most crucial part. Why? Because personnel are actually your manpower, okay? Your Okay, so when it comes to when it comes to personnel, okay? When it comes to personnel, we are very much concerned because if we're gonna look at the if we're gonna look at the 12 essentials, in an organization, personnel is important. In maintaining your equipment, all of this 12, okay? Personnel is very important, okay? Personnel is very important. So I'm not saying that personnel is more important, but personnel is very much needed in order for this 12 elements to work all together as one. Okay? So with personnel, of course, you have to make sure that you have enough human resources. So you cannot force a particular company to actually take, for example, there were even times in the laboratory, isang medical technologist lang ang naka-duty sa laboratory pag night duty. Okay? So that is very hard. Okay? That would be very challenging because your personnel, okay, your personnel would really be overworked in that case. Job qualifications are also very important. For me, job qualifications are important because that will also determine their efficiency as your personnel. Take for example, you won't choose a person to manage the public health of the Philippines without knowledge of public health. Can I get an amen? 'Di ba? Hindi ka kukuha ng isang you will not be assigning or delegating an official in a particular position who doesn't even know what public health is all about. Yes, all things can be learned, but in this time of pandemic, it's too late to learn. Okay? It's actually too late na ngayon ka palang matututo of the concept of public health. What I'm trying to say is that there are more qualified people and person that could sit in a particular position. Okay? That can sit in a particular position. That's why it's very important to actually take note of their job qualification. Job description is also very important so that everybody would know what to do and what not to do. Okay? Kasi pwede namang yung dapat gumagawa, nakaupo na lang. Instead na yung gumagawa yung nagtatrabaho, because job descriptions are unclear, okay? Because job descriptions are unclear, they are not doing it anymore, di ba? So training, okay, I want to put this four all together: training, competency assessment, professional development, and continuing development, continuing education are also very important for your personnel. As employers, it's actually their job to put us into a training that would increase our experience, our competency as professionals, and that would actually make us more competitive when it comes to the when it comes to when it comes to the workplace. Okay, so it's very important. So of course, training, competency. Madaming kumpanya takot mag-train kasi baka umalis lang din yung personnel nila, but that's not actually the case. You have to really train them, okay, because at the end of the day, the one who will be benefiting the most will be you and your own company. Okay, so of course, after personnel, we also need to talk about your equipment. So when it comes to your equipment, these are the instruments, the apparatuses that we are using in the laboratory. One very important thing, okay, are the processes that you need to take note are with regards to acquisition. Okay, all of these are very important from acquisition to records. In a nutshell, okay, in a nutshell, when choosing a particular equipment, it should be an equipment of good quality as well. And of course, you also need to weigh things better. You also need to find a an equipment, rather, you need to find an equipment that is actually cost-effective as well. Not only of good quality, but also of good price. Okay? Hindi lang good quality, good price din. Okay? It's very important for you to take note of that. Okay? It's very important for us to take note of that because at the end of the day, yan yung gagamitin mo inside your laboratory. So from acquisition, okay, from the installation, okay, the provider should be there to guide you, okay, to guide you and to help you with the installation of the machine. With regards to the validation, sir, what do you mean by validation? Okay, when you buy a machine, okay, you need to validate the method. We call it method validation. What is method validation? Method validation is when you try to compare, okay, when you try to compare the new test or the new method, compare it to your reference method, okay? To your reference method. In a nutshell, when you try to buy a machine, you're trying to compare the newly acquired machine from a reference machine. Are you getting me? Can I see a raise of hand if I'm clear with that? Okay? So that's what we're trying to do there, okay? We're trying to compare if this particular machine is actually of good quality or it can actually give the same result as a reference method. Okay? Because take for example, there is a particular machine that you bought that the patient's results are normal. But if you're gonna check the results in a reference method, the patient's results are actually abnormal. Similarly to our to this pandemic right now. Take for example, you made use of a test kit that can be bought in Mercury Drugstore or anywhere. Okay? And then in the test kit, you are testing negative. But if you do your swab test using RT-PCR, okay, using RT-PCR, you will be testing positive. Ang may kasalanan pa nito will be your medical technologists because they are the one processing the sample. Okay? But in reality, is that even possible? Yes, that's possible. That's why before before rolling out, okay, I wanted to highlight the validation, the maintenance, and calibration. These three are very important because before you roll out a particular test, a new test, before you introduce a new test, you need to validate it first. You need to calibrate it first. Like take for example, if you met someone through the internet during the pandemic, you need to validate if that is really that person or it's just a catfish. You need to calibrate if that person is really a person and not just an android or a bot talking to you. Okay? It's not like in the movie Her. Okay? So you need to you need to validate and you need to calibrate that. Of course, eventually maintenance, troubleshooting are also very important. So the service the machine provider should also have services provided to your company. Okay, service and repair, and also records that will actually be listed down in your DOH. Sir, ganun talaga yon. Yes, even the machine that you are using are all registered in the in DOH. So there was one last weekend I went out with my friends who were working in the molecular laboratory, and there was one laboratory daw in I think it was in Baclaran. There was one laboratory in Baclaran that was forced to close. Why? Because they were just doing what they are doing are only rapid tests. Okay, that's why guys, for those of you who will be um doing swab test in the future, or who will be undergoing swab test in the future, look for a reliable and really a legit laboratory that does it. Okay? Why? Because what happened in the laboratory in Baclaran, what they are saying, ang sinasabi nila, they are doing RT-PCR. They are performing RT-PCR. But when discovered, they were actually doing what? They were only doing rapid tests. Okay, they were only doing rapid tests. And of course, if you take for example, there is a positive patient, but because your kit would say negative, you would declare it's negative, and that patient will go around spreading the disease, spreading the virus. Okay? So it's very important for you to take note of those. Okay? So if ever you need contacts for swab test, meron tayong mga alam na legit talaga. Okay? Legit talaga. Maybe some of you are wondering, sir, paano nila nalaman? Because there are medical technologists who became whistleblower because they can no longer live with it that they are actually faking laboratory results. Okay? So, moving on, okay, masyado tayong nadala sa equipment. So, moving on with the purchasing and inventory. So, of course, you also need to check the vendor qualification, baka bogus. Okay? Nag-order ka na, hindi pala dumating. Di ba? Sino nang nabogus sa Shopee dito? Nung tinignan mo sa Shopee, okay, rubber shoes. Pagdating sa'yo, hindi pala rubber shoes. Okay? So, all those kinds of things. Okay? So, na-scam ka pala. So, you need to make sure that you are purchasing the right supplies and reagents. So, when it comes to critical services, take for example, bigla kang nawalan ng reagent. Your reagent run out. So, will you be able to contact them immediately? So, those are part of your purchasing and inventory. What else? When it comes to critical services, take for example, there are erroneous or faulty reagents that cannot be calibrated or that are releasing erroneous results. You can also give them to them. Okay, give it to them. So when it comes to inventory management, of course, you need to have adequate supplies all the time. So you need to make sure that all of those things are actually those things are actually complete in your laboratory. Okay? So I think I am nearing actually the end of my discussion. So if you have any question, please start typing it in so that we'll be able to answer them. So with regards to process control, ayan, with regards to process control, this is more concerned on the procedures that we are doing. So quality control, sample management, how should I collect, how should I handle, how should I process the specimen, all are within the process control. Okay, method validation and method verification, I have elaborated this a while back when we were discussing your equipment. So the same is true with your process control. Now let's go to we'll have a separate discussion about quality control. That's why I'm taking a short time only discussing this. Okay? So what else? We also have here information management. So what are the things that you need to make sure? Okay, the confidentiality, the requisitions, the log records, the report, and the computerized laboratory information system. So this is now with regards to the what? This is now with regards to the management of your documents. Okay, so creation, revision, review, and control, and also the distribution of your results. So before, as you can see in the picture, that is how laboratory results look like. Okay, you would need to actually have those notebooks every now and then, and you have to unearth it down to the deepest drawers, down to the deepest boxes that you have in the laboratory. Okay? But now our records can be collected, they can be reviewed, all can be stored, and all can be retrieved in a very short period of time. So this is very important for you guys to remember. Okay? So documents, and your information system. Perhaps most of you now are wondering how your quiz will be. Okay, you will be given situations. Take for example, the medical technologist is performing a retrieval of laboratory results. What part of the 12 essentials would that be? Okay, would it be the process control, inventory ba yan, or other else? Of course, that would be the answer will be your information management. Okay, so you need to be familiar, not verbatim of this. Of course, I'm not like that. Hindi ko sasabihin confidentiality, requisition. Of course, um, it would be an actual scenario already. So please prepare for a quiz by Wednesday, 1 p.m. That would be on February 10. Okay, that would be on February 10. So what else? So we also have occurrence management. So when we are talking about occurrence management, this is managing. Okay, this is how you control, how you systemically address a particular complaint, a particular mistake, or a problem. So take for example, there's an error in the release of the results. Like instead of putting the name of, take for example, instead of putting Fioriza Kabiting, what I was able to put was Agustin Ira. So how will I be able to correct that? So we follow a particular system or a particular procedure in making sure that the corrections, the mistakes, the problems will all be done and are all documented. In the root cause analysis, take for example, in the root cause analysis, you would try to look for the problem. You look for the problem. You define the problem. After defining the problem, what will you do next is to actually identify the cause. Okay, identify the root cause. After identifying the root cause, of course, you will now start to what? You will now start to identify the possible solutions or the mitigations, the remedy that you can do. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that you can do to actually better the performance of your laboratory. Okay, so of course, immediate actions, the corrective. Take for example, there was an error. What are the corrective actions? There was a machine. What are the preventive actions in preventing? Take for example, fire, chemical spill. Okay, all of those things are all included in your occurrence management. Okay, so I think I'm down to my last four. So we have also your laboratory assessment. Again, much of this will be discussed when we talk about your quality control. So just be familiar that internal quality control or internal QC is what we do here are we make use of quality indicators which are called your controls. Okay, our audit program, audit review. Again, in internal quality control, we are making use of um, your abnormal and normal anti-sera. Okay? In the external, on the other hand, the external quality control or quality assurance is also known. It's also known as your proficiency testing. These are done. The inspections, on the other hand, and the accreditations are done by example, the National Reference Laboratories, and also of course, your DOH. Okay? So, with regards now, okay, moving on, we go to your improvement. What are process improvement? Of course, as you can see, the reason why quality is a continuously evolving system is because quality is not constant. Quality will change. The preference of your patients, the preference of your customers, your consumers will change over time. That's why you always need to look for opportunities for improvement. Where can I get better pa? Where can I improve? Okay? And perhaps when you saw your grade last semester, you also have that kind of moment when you ask yourself, what else can I do better? What else can I improve this coming semester? So asking yourselves those questions are very important, not only in our personal life, but also in the clinical laboratory. You need to ask the feedback of your stakeholder. Okay, take for example, di ba sino yung mga may banda dito? Take for example, sila Honor. Di ba? Sila Honor, meron silang um, band, sila Froilan, meron silang band. Isn't it? After releasing an album, you would actually ask feedback from your stakeholders, from your take for example, from your avid fans. I know that there are some na talaga it's really for expression, but let's face it, 'di ba? Recording industry would also give you feedback. Okay, they would give you feedback on how you did. Okay, so those are also very important. Same thing with the in the clinical laboratory, the stakeholders would also need to give their feedback. And when I say stakeholders, these are your administrators, even the personnel, everybody who are playing an important role in your processes or in your services. So risk assessment, much of that in your PMLSP2, ayan, kasama rin dito si preventive and corrective actions. Why? Because of course, you want to improve your process, you need to have corrections, you need to do some tweaking in all of your projects and all of your processes, and also preventive actions. Alam mo na bago pa masaktan, 'di ba? You already prevented it. Okay? Even before a particular problem arise, you already prevented it. Okay? So, moving forward now, very much related to your process improvement is of course your customer service. Okay, you need to always have feedback from your customers because at the end of the day, they are your consumers. They are the one that experience your your services. As I take for example, if if a medical technologist will be asked by their boss, o kumusta ba yung mga pasyente natin? Natuwa ba yung mga pasyente natin? Of course, the medical technologist, a very optimistic one, would say, of course, they were. Okay? But you will not have an actual feedback not unless you go really to where your patients are and ask them about their feedback, their needs. Okay? Ayan, when you ask their needs, that's another area that you can enter, that you can add for your improvement. Okay, like for example, they would be needing more information, more guidance, and a more empathic nurses, doctors, and medical technologists. So all of those things will also be included. And of course, last but not the least, it will be your facilities and safety. So safe working environment, not only for your personnel, but also safety, of course, of your um, patients and customers. So with regards to security and containment, very important here would be the concept of biosecurity. Can somebody differentiate to me, okay, what is biosecurity and what is biosafety? Let us go with Amira. What is biosafety? What is biosecurity?
Hello po.
Hi.
Ayan. So, as far as I remember, biosafety is protecting the human from the unintentional release of microorganisms, specifically pathogens. And
Mm.
biosecurity is the protection of humans as well from the intentional release of these pathogens.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amira. Okay, so let me just um fix and correct the definition. The definition of Amira of biosafety, very correct. Very good. Okay? That's really the definition of biosafety. But with regards to biosecurity, the reason why I am asking you that because we're talking about security and containment. Biosecurity, okay, is not it's not only the protection of human beings in general, but this is actually protecting the pathogens, okay, protecting the microorganisms that can potentially be used as bioterrorism agent that can be deliberately used to cause harm in a particular community. Take for example, tama. We protect the microorganism from the bad people. Okay, so laging ganon. Of course, ito just a quick no palatandaan. If we're talking about biosafety, we're protecting people from bad bacteria or bad bugs, as we call it in general. But in biosecurity, we protect the bugs from bad people. Okay? Because there will be people who would be intentionally releasing who will be intentionally releasing these substances to harm other people, okay, to harm other community, okay. So of course biosafety, that's one, and of course ergonomics. So talking about that very lengthy 12 essential elements, okay, implementing quality management at the end of the day would not guarantee us an error-free laboratory. That's the reality that I want you guys to remember, ha? Na hindi dahil ginawa mo na ang lahat, perfect na ang lahat. Can I hear an amen here? Di ba? Hindi dahil binigay mo na lahat, everything will be perfect. Okay? Not because you thought, okay, ang daming exclamation point nung kay Arnaldo, mas malalim ating hugot. So not because you gave your all, or not because you perform the quality management, that will not guarantee us na error-free na ang buhay. Okay? But the good thing about having a quality management is that you yes, that's the reality. We cannot guarantee an error-free laboratory, but we can detect the error. And when we detect the error, we can prevent the occurrence and even the recurrence of this error. Are you getting me? Again, no, when I ask you why is quality management important? It's important not if sabi nga natin kanina, 'di ba, in the beginning, when we were talking about quality, there is that 1% error pa din. And sometimes we accept that 1% error. But why? Di ba? But why? Because at the end of the day, di ba, we cannot make sure that everything would go perfectly and would go error-free. But when we were able to identify the root cause of the problem, when we identify the causes, the root cause of errors, we can address them, we can resolve them, and just like what Dean Rodriguez would say, we would dissolve them. Kasi pag re-resolve mo, pwede pang dumating ulit, dadating pa yan. But if you dissolve it, It will be gone. Okay? So, of course, again, no, it will not guarantee us an error-free. And maybe some laboratories, sasabihin naman nila, o di ba't pa ako mag-quality management? Di ba? Laboratories not implementing a quality management system, ito naman tayo, sure na sure tayo. It has a guarantee that they are releasing erroneous result, that they are having undetected errors in their laboratory. Okay? So, with that, thank you so much, guys, for listening. So, if you have any questions or clarifications, I am opening the floor now for your questions. I will be ending this recording